What's up, men? Welcome to the Male Cartel podcast. Let's get started.
Do you think men are important? Like for what?
Men are not meant to be dominant. Men are meant to be submissive.
Life's too short to exercise. I'm just going to be honest.
It's okay to be fat.
Dispelling toxic masculinity and really redefining what it means to be a man. Men can cry. So it's okay to be weak. It's okay to be weak.
I'm telling you right now, not everybody wants to see you win.
You seem to be more woman than you are man. You don't have any manly qualities.
You give them this message that it's okay to be a man.
It's not okay, it's necessary. How are we going to do without men? You look around the city here, you see all these buildings go up, these men, they're doing impossible things.
It ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
Be a dangerous man. Being dangerous is not being a threat. They're two different things. You can't be a good man if you're not a dangerous man. You say one disrespectful thing to my wife, I am not only willing, but I'm able to inflict great bodily damage.
I'm going to do everything in my power to become a victor and not a victim. I can't explain it, but you better feel me. Winners win and losers lose. I can't explain it any better than that. I don't know how it happens, but winners win. And if you create a culture of losing, if you keep being a victim, if you keep letting losing happen to you, if you keep letting people do you and treat you any kind of way, it's going to become a culture. What's the matter with you? There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow.
Here's your host, Nick and Shane.
Guys, welcome back to the Male Cartel podcast. So grateful to have you join us today. This is really a special episode. It is really a bonus. As you all know, we started in our last episode a multi-episode conversation that we're going to take a pause from because many of you did not know that some of those episodes were pre-recorded. We didn't share anything on that. And so we knew a circumstance and a situation was coming up that we're about to share with you in just a moment that required us to try to go ahead and get some episodes out. And then we spaced those 2 or 3, well, actually it was like 3, maybe even 3 weeks, maybe longer than that out. And so some of you might have been wondering like, hey, is there a new episode coming out? What's the deal? Well, because Shane just doesn't broadcast everything and highlight everything, we have not shared what's up with him. And we posted one thing several weeks ago about him going through cancer, and we did not share that on the podcast. So some of you who listen and maybe not connected with us on social media might not have known that. So that might be news to you. But to have him in the studio today is a special opportunity. I mean, you could say he's a special guest. For him to be here, to be able to even share on the episode, to be able to share on microphone is huge to me. I've not personally even spoken to him in person. We text just about every day. His spirit's been the same. We roast each other. We roast other people. His spirit has been the same, but I wasn't sure at what level, how much strain it would put to be talking to him physically, and so I've just have it. So when he came in today and was able to speak, I was like, man, you sound so much better than I was anticipating. And so grateful to have my buddy, my co-host, Shane Padgett, with us today, and Shane's going to share with us what he's been going through. You know, what it is that he's been dealing with. He just felt led to really share some of his experiences up to this point. And so, Shane, welcome. Where have you been? What's been going on?
Yeah, sorry that my voice sounds different. I was hoping I'd have an Australian accent. Is what I told the doctors when they reconstructed my mouth. So I've had cancer. Ended up with Nick was one of the first people I told that I have cancer. I knew something wasn't right. back in the fall, and then definitely by February of this year, 2025, and my mouth was killing me. I always got ulcers, and so I thought that's what it was. And so I ended up going to March and getting a biopsy. And people have asked me several times, have I, when did I know? What took so long? And the reason it took so long, as you guys know, is that I was in a hotel for 4 months. And I knew something was wrong. I had about a couple of speaking engagements in February that I really felt like God ordained and I was passionate about. And so I just endured it. It was super tough speaking. I would do the podcast and my mouth would be hurting, and Nick knows I would use mouth ulcers and medicine. Even when we were doing the podcast, the film would be awful. Me and would do the Nick, and I would still try to numb it because it would numb for about 10 minutes. And just about me enough time to where I can get done with a lot of my stuff so that I could go to the doctors. And I knew that it was serious because of the pain level, and I Googled some stuff. And so I was like, well, I'll go and I'll look, and then and knew that it would turn the apple cart, and then all the things we had planned for the summer will change. Everything for things I was passionate about ministry-wise, but everything would change. And so I wasn't prepared for the change, and I was worried that, a legit worry that I would be a burden on people. And that's always been my biggest, I guess, worry. If I have a worry, would be that not that I have cancer or if it would be extreme or anything. It's always been that I would be a burden on people, because I don't ever burden people. I'm a burden lifter, not a giver. So I ended up, and then we found out that it wasn't in my bones, and so basically it was a stage 3 oral cancer. I never smoked or anything like that. Tobacco products is kind of a freak thing, and so they wound up doing reconstructive surgery. I mean, mounds of scans and blood work and everything. Imagine I have a hereditary blood disorder. So, it's like sickle cell anemia, except for my red blood cells are sphere shaped, not sickle shape. And so, and 2 clotting disorders. So my body is complex. That's why I work really hard. One of the reasons, work really hard to be in good shape and take care of myself, because it is my responsibility, no one else's. And so we, stage 3. And so they basically reconstructed my mouth and took out 70% of my tongue and rebuilt it from the inside of my mouth and all that. And yeah, man. And then, from hospital and all the things, and now in middle of treatment. And then, I've had multiple blood clots in my leg, and, all the things. I don't know how much you want to get in. I know you have some questions, but I can tell you that one of the reasons I wanted to do this, I haven't really publicly spoke about anything. I haven't posted anything on social media. There's still people in the church that I serve in that are just now finding out. I don't know how, but just now finding out. My wife has wrote everything that's on our Karen Ridge. If you know about me, I don't celebrate stuff, but things I have to celebrate, which I feel led to, is like my kids' birthdays. And then, as in my ministry, how many people I've impacted for Jesus in a year, because there's people who support me. So I do that at 6-month mark and 1 year mark. Other than that, I don't post any of the positive stuff, and then I don't post any of the bad stuff. I've always been closed off, and I believe that my character will speak for itself, and I don't think I should have a banner and promote myself. However, I've been really impacted lately. There's an MMA guy who had a lung transplant. And it just seems like there have been multiple people on social media, a lot of celebrities, but different athletes and different people who have been very public about their endurance and then them going through suffering. And part of my suffering, I don't ever want to make probably as a man thing, I don't want to make myself look bad. I want people to see me. I want people to have pity on me. So I want prayers, not pity. And so it's hard sometimes. I know I'm not responsible for people's pity, Nick. That's their responsibility. But I don't want to give somebody a reason to have pity on me. And so I ended up felt really convicted on Saturday. I was in the Word and talking about the meek, and then God's grace is sufficient for me, and it is. Jesus is my portion. He's my inheritance. My flesh may fail, my heart may fail. Psalm 73. But Jesus is my portion and my strength. He is everything. And I posted that scripture like day one of everything, and it's always been one of my key verses in the Old Testament. And I was like, if I really should believe this, I probably need to be more vulnerable. And so I'm vulnerable face to face with people oftentimes, but I felt like I was. And then, so I've been just really impacted lately by people who I believe some of them are not believers, but they're enduring suffering, and some of them have been believers, And so I started thinking, I was like, I don't know how long I can talk but I'm on medicine. I have all this stuff. I feel pretty good today. And so I was like, I probably should need to share it. And I don't know what's the best contents to do that. I'm not going to post anything on social media. I'm not going to blast it for myself. And then it's weird. God put it on my heart, and I was like, I wonder, should I do the podcast? I haven't done it in a while. And then about that time, you sent me a text. And then, I'm like, I'm not superstitious or anything. I don't believe I had things happen for accident. And I was like, that's exactly what the Lord wants to do. So I waited for a few minutes or whatever, had a mold on it. I was like, eh. And then finally I said, yeah. I said, hey, man, you consider this? We ought to do this if it will work. And really thought, hey, maybe I can encourage a man. If it was a one man, let's do a podcast, then that's all the difference in the world. And I was like, well, maybe God would, if it's his will to have a broader audience and that would impact many more people, then that's awesome too. Yeah. But at least I haven't opened my mouth at all. So I was like, this would be the best context to do it, a safe place to do it. So I was like, all right. And then so this is how we are. So.
Yeah, and I think, some people share when I just posted the one post, somebody I think had given us a 1-star rating, and I don't know why. We're not a 1-star podcast. We're at least a 2-star, at worst, and we'll own that. But I had commented that, we were, after our pre-recorded episodes, it would be a little bit, and so some guys shared they weren't aware, which allowed them to enter into praying for you. And so I understand that balance, not wanting to be so vocal, look at me, those who almost are career victims and always wanting doing it for attention versus, hey, here's what's going on and here's how you can pray for me. Because after sharing today what you share, people still need to pray for you. You're still in the midst of the struggle, and it's going to be a while. You're only halfway through some of your treatment, which you can share about in just a moment. But I think it's very important, as you said, maybe encouraging one man, because their suffering might not be, cancer. I just call it tongue cancer. I know it's got an official name, but people suffer. And to hear what you're dealing with and enduring, I think could be an encouragement to them. And so, if you want to share kind of what that looked like, I know you talked about having to have it reconstructed, but if you want to share a little bit about the, kind of initial with the procedure and then what happened after that, because where a lot of people might think with the mouth, that's all that it's limited to, but because of your blood disorder, you've dealt with so much more. I think at one time you said your leg was more painful than your mouth. And so if you want to kind of share, from the surgery, a little bit about what they had to do, and then what happened after that has caused you even greater suffering to where you're at now. And then, there's some other things I know I want to talk to you about through some of that. So you kind of give people an idea of what you've been experiencing and going through.
Yeah, so mid-May, they were going to remove a lymph nodes on my right side and then remove all the nerves in my jaw and some glands and duct that have been compromised with cancer. And then at stage 3, oral cancer. It's called oral cavity cancer. As somebody who never smoked or anything, it's different. And so they removed 70% of my tongue. And so to rebuild my tongue, they were going to take it from a thigh and muscle and then reattach and then make me my tongue the same length and everything. And then they couldn't do it because of the blood clots. And so instead of doing a wasted surgery, they decided to do an old school technique where they rotate basically inside your mouth and your cheeks and stuff, cut out most of my tongue and then fashion it in such a way. And my tongue's kind of lopsided. It's kind of got a Carolina squat, to it, but it's like sideways. And my tongue, I would never lick ice cream again because my tongue doesn't go past my teeth. And I can barely in my mouth right now. I can touch my teeth and then stop at the incisors. And I can't touch anything else. My tongue doesn't work like a normal person. So imagine somebody taking an ice cream scoop and scooping out all around your tongue. That's what's been scooped out. My inside of my mouth has been turned inside out. And so they put a bolster in your mouth, kind of lock your jaw in place so you don't bite down on the arteries and stuff that they attach everything, because you need blood flow to put a graft or whatever on it and to attach everything. And so because it cut, like I said, a large percentage off my tongue. And then ended up doing that. I was put in the hospital for 10 days. I got to go out in 4 and had to come back to the hospital in 10 more days, have another surgery. And then the first surgery was, I don't know how many hours, but it was a long day. And then the second one was like 3 hours or something like that, surgery where they just take out everything. And then that's been put in. And then I had a feeding tube and all this stuff. And then that same day I came home from surgery, my leg was bothering me. Now, I've been running a fever for 2 days at that point. And so I wound up having 102 point plus fever for 13 straight days. And then developed blood clots in my left leg, which I get clots. I've had blood clots in my upper arm and both my legs and my groin area before. This one was IVC filter site. I have a filter, in me. And then 3 multiple clots that shut down my entire left leg. Most pain I've ever felt in my life. And, and I've had 25 different clots. This is my 25th clot. And times that I have a blood clot. So now currently my leg feels like a normal blood clot for me. But ended up, was in a wheelchair for many weeks, almost a month. And then the last week or so of that, I graduated to a walker and had wheels on it. And so I would use a walker and limp through that. I lost almost 60 pounds in that process from this whole cancer journey. Went from 238, 240 down to 180. And then the first time I weighed myself, I could stand on a scale. I couldn't stand with both feet really, but over, I think I was 186 pounds. And then I know I was lower than that at one point, but, and then ended up doing all that. And then I'm halfway in my treatment now, and it reverbs out 2 weeks after treatment. So it'll be September before I start feeling normal, no fatigue. And so the levels of the treatment as well is like there's lowercase Nick, and then there's upper as far as like the effects of it, And so we were praying for the bottom effect, and ended up with the worst effect. And then the worst effect in ulcers all in my mouth, sunburn in my mouth. Imagine the worst sunburn you ever had. On my neck right now, it's always on fire, no taste, thick saliva. You feel like you're the alien creature that pops people's chest that has all that mucus. That's how it was. It's just a big deal. A lot of fatigue. My tongue was always burning, on fire. I got tons of medicine. My oncologist and their team has been absolutely amazing with all the care that they've given me. And making sure that I'm in comfort care right now until I just have to endure this portion. And then I could lose my taste for up to a year. And then, the worst case long-term with my type of radiation, I'm getting a powerful dose directly in my mouth, mainly on my left side, neck and mouth, and then some left side, and then lymph nodes on my left side. And then long-term effects obviously could be, I have tons of scar tissue damage because they just turn my inside of my mouth out. So my mouth just doesn't work properly on that right side that's been reconstructed, which is different than somebody who's already had tongue cancer, had the tongue removed, some of it, and have a skin graft. They just will have sores on their throat, that could be in their throat and in their mouth. Mine is like it was 4 weeks from surgery. So where it was already so inflamed from the radiation, it's bad, man. It looks like a horror movie in my mouth. And then, so all that, my bone could be deteriorated, so I could have a total jaw reconstruction. That could be something long-term effects, bone breakdown, teeth loss. Your teeth could just disintegrate, basically. And so I'll get some dental work, more dental work. I've had a lot prior to this, just to get my mouth perfect for radiation, so that I will stand a really good chance. I take fluoride trays, I put them in my mouth with fluoride in it every night for 5 minutes, and spit it out to protect my teeth. And so far my teeth are great. But we want to just, again, that's my responsibility to take care of my mouth, take care of what I'm responsible for. And then we'll have some more dental stuff done later on if my jaw turns out okay, and then maybe have another surgery to give me more room. But all that just hinges on how I feel after the fact. But my plan is by September, hopefully gradually my injury comes back, and hopefully I'll be rocking and rolling. And my goal is by mid-September to gain 10 more pounds. I'll lose 10, but I'd love to be back at my weight by October, mid-October. By November, when I get to ring the bell, basically, and be in remission, I'll ring the bell after treatment. But then after all these different scans that we'll have, then I'll be able to say that I'm officially in remission, probably right before Thanksgiving. And so that'd be a good Thanksgiving. Yeah. So I think it's the second week in November. And I'm hoping by then I'm at 238, back prime Shane Padgett, and let's go. And then, but the way everything has worked so far, and nothing has gone as planned. Everything has been like worst case so far, but here I am.
Well, worst case, but I want two things. One, you mentioned about just enduring through it, but your doctor told you were sharing beforehand about the emphasis on that endurance. I mean, share a little bit about that, like how he kind of emphasized that to you, and just the reality of, I mean, anyone going through suffering, it's the same.
Yeah.
The way you were sharing it was just like, yeah, man, that's the key. That's the point. Because I imagine it would be easier to just throw in the towel, give up, kind of not do what you're responsible for because you're tired, you're wore out. Worst case scenario in every way. Share a little bit about what the doctor told you and how you've had to experience that.
Yeah. So like you find you have cancer and you have all this stuff, and then you're having all these scans, and then it's like, I mean, you're just doing a whole lot at one time. It's very overwhelming, extremely overwhelming. And my appointment was in April, and my doctor, she's awesome. I have two oncologists. I have a male and a female. I have one right now that's a male that I work with every single day, and then I go to treatment every day. And then I have one that that's my general over that. They do like a handoff. So now I'm at this new doctor, and then basically she said they're going to run me through the gauntlet. It's going to be tough. It's going to be, but I'm young, I'm healthy, and I seem to have a really good perspective on like how to attack. And I just was telling her, I'm stubborn as all get out, and then I'm gonna beast mode it, and this is who I am. I'm Shane Padgett. And then my wife was in the room, so I kind of knew that going in. And as far as treatment go, my doctor said, he basically just saying how I just have to endure it. And I'm quoting Timothy to him, where it's like, do the work of evangelist, but it says in there, it says endure suffering. And that's what we have to do, just endure it. We must suffer well. Yeah. And that's been my jump. That. That's what I've been saying from the jump. I must suffer well in this. Yeah. But in that, it's just that you just have to endure it, and then it's going to be for a season, and it may be for 2 seasons, or whatever. And there'll be residual effects, or whatever, how you say that word. But you're just going to have to like lock in and do that. And some of that lock in is not one time you just lock in. Like it's almost like daily. And that goes back to like from jump, we've said my wife was pushing this on me because I sometimes get the cart before the horse. Want to plan things out. You're like me too. We just like plan and vision. We're like visionaries and all that. My wife was like, we got to treat every day by itself. And I was convicted in that moment when she said that. And I was like, yeah. because every day God gives us our daily bread. And I said to my wife at that moment, I said, give us our daily bread. We come back from oncology visit, and I said, daily bread, he don't give us a week bread because it gets stale. We get it every day. And I still at least keep my funny humor, you know, my little one-liners I come up with on the spot. And that's been our motto. Every day I'm like, here's my goals for today. This is what I want to achieve. But when you're in the hospital, I'm telling you, man, you don't feel good at all. When I was in the room, I didn't know where they're going to do what they're going to procedure. They just said they're going to go in and cut everything out that needs to be cut out. And basically was okay with that. And I was like, take everything out you need to take out. I'll deal with it when I wake up. And I woke up. I didn't have my trach in my mouth. I had my trach in my throat. I could breathe on my own. The bolster was in my throat. Bolster, whatever it's called. And I'm like looking around. And I'm like, okay. All right. And I saw my pastor, Dr. McKinley, was just in the hallway. And I gave him a thumbs up. He's the only one I saw. It was weird. I don't know how he makes his way back into different rooms of the hospital. It's like in the basement. And I was like...
He knows the secret corridors.
he knows a lot of people, that's for sure. And I gave him a thumbs up. Everything's going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. And I was trying to figure out in my mind what's just happened. And I knew everything was different. My body inside my mouth. So I was like, okay, cool. And then got in the room, hooked machines, more pain medicine, all the things. My head was splitting. And then tried to go pee because I felt my bladder full. And then I wound up, oh, all right, well, I'm going to try to stand up and pee. And I have a fall wrist, wristband, everything. I told my wife, I said, you got to help me. And I got tubes in my nose, tubes in my throat, bags of blood coming out everywhere. I'm holding bags of blood, 2 different IVs in my arm, feeding tubes. And I'm like, help me get out of this bed. And I come out of my bed and try to stand up and pee. Couldn't stand up and pee. I was like, I got to stand up and stretch a little bit. And I stood up about 30 seconds, and then I almost threw up everywhere, which I have a bolster on my mouth. I literally, like, mentally, the mental state of what was happening in my mouth with just imagine if you're a person listening, just take it where, imagine somebody putting a block in your throat, to keep your throat open. And everything is kind of like shut. So imagine like wired shut. Mine was sewed in. And so everything is like that. And knowing that you can't throw up. If you throw up, it's going to go everywhere. It's going to rip out everything in your mouth. And then you're having like swallow like this here. And nothing in your mouth has been turned inside out. So I just having like goo and fluid come out my mouth, and blood was just drying everywhere. My wife was just cleaning my mouth. I would take a napkin and say, give me a towel on my own and scoop out all the mucus out of my mouth. And I would do that like 5 times a day. And then I had a little suction cup too. I clawed that thing up twice. And but the mental state, you're just in it. And then when you go home, I didn't drink water for 10 days. I didn't know what water tastes like. Well, I guess it was only like 13 days. Something like that. It was 13 days. Hadn't even touched water. I just kept on dreaming about drinking water for the first time. And finally you taste water after 13 days, and you're like, they took everything out, and then I had the blood clots. Then I had to wait 3 days before the doctors, because it was a Friday. I had to wait till Monday, because it's weird, doctors. You get a hold of a doctor's office on the weekends, and this doctor's office come here. And my wife was amazing. She was my advocate because I couldn't talk. And I was in bad shape, man, bad shape.
And the endurance went beyond the mouth. How long were you bedridden because of the clot?
Almost
Did you get out Father's? Well, you had that checkup before Father's Day, right?
Before Father's Day, yeah.
Did they give you the all clear after that then to start? Because you were bedridden for.
So my goal originally was that I would be, I was like, and I would try. So early on when I came home from the hospital, I was like before the second surgery, we just said every day I'm gonna have a goal, and I'm gonna go walking. And my kids, I got pictures. My kids would walk with me, and I couldn't walk but one end of the house, other end of the house. But I didn't get my strength back up. So I set all these goals every day. I'm gonna read a part of a book until I get tired, and I'm gonna get up and walk a little bit, or my goals. And then I had the blood clots. The first few days I could limp, and it was like like imagine a kidney stone, but in your leg in 3 separate spots. And I was like, would drag my foot basically, couldn't bend my knee. And that was so much pain. But I didn't want my family to freak out because they've already seen me endure a lot. At this point, it's been 2 weeks and some change. I just could not, I didn't want my kids to see me. They already see Daddy, and compared to what they think I'm Superman. No, I have to figure that out. And then it got to where my son Andrew I had to call for him. Andrew. And then he'd come in. And then it got where he would come in and get me. And then every few hours he would always check on me. And then he would help me to the bathroom. He had to hold one side of me. Then it got to where I couldn't do anything. So this is in a 3-day span. And then after that I had to get to the bathroom. I had to pee. I had to try to poop. I didn't poop for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. That was horrific. I did stool softeners, everything you could ever imagine, an enema, all the stuff, dude. With the blood clot, dude, I was laying on the floor in so much pain. I took so much pain medicine that just to endure it. Just I was like, if I poop all over myself, that'd be worth it. And that's for another day. But then my wife and my daughter had to carry me to the bathroom. You know how humiliating as a man? I was sad, man. I sit in my chair backwards, and I just feel like, man, my kids, my wife and my kid, my daughter, my 8th grader has to carry me to the bathroom. I have no strength. At that point, I lost 40 pounds. Okay, and it's going down. And at the height of that, them carrying me everywhere, finally I got a walker. And after like 2 days of that, I used the walker on my own. They found me doing the walker. I just looked at that thing. I was like, I'm going to give it a shot. I made myself do it, and they were freaking out. But, I mean, I'm, like, shaking all over, man. Like I have something seriously wrong with me because I had no strength. I could barely make it, and I had to walk, like, 2-3 steps, and I didn't sleep through the night, and I'd go to the bathroom. And then I got where we just said we did away with that. So I do it as I had getting frustrated, and then I had a pee jug. I would pee, Take that back. I didn't use it for probably 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, but before the walker, I couldn't go do anything. So Andrew, my son, I just pee in a jug like you do at the hospital, and he would empty out my bladder. And then I would use the walker to take a poop because I got where I couldn't go in the middle of the night by myself because there was a legit feeling of like going to fall. You're kind of delirious, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so you don't have strength, anything. At that point, the height I lost, was almost 60 pounds. And so you're just a frail person. And then, so it was crazy, man. And then the clots started dissolving. So the pain wasn't a 10 when I would stand up, all the gravity. Normally, it would just sit at a 7. And when you stand up, any kind of movement would be a 10 immediately. And then it would take 30, 45 minutes to come back down.
So just at rest, it was at a 7. Wow.
Dude. Like your anxiety's through the roof. So in the hospital, I would just have a morphine drip. So like I'd be sedated with morphine all the time, or diloxin, which is synthetic morphine. So like that's what I had in the hospital. And in this, I was just like, I'm not taking all this doggone pain medicine. I'm just going to try to endure as much as I can so I can feel some of the pain. And so I had to be super wise. Again, my family's amazing. I would stagger my pain medicine to where I would think I would get up. So then when the pain would go, it wouldn't throw me off. Because when you go sit on the toilet, I'm sitting, my legs are kinked, not elevated, and then all you would think about was the pain. We couldn't even poop because it would override everything. And then so I would try to stagger it, be wise, and then you just do your thing, and then finally started elevating down to where I stand up. It would be about, a 6, maybe a 7, but at rest it was more like a 3. And so I was like, I would do more. I would read, I would do all this stuff and then text everybody and like be more proactive, more alert. And then I would scale off my pain medicine like I was. And then I was like, all right, let's do this. And then I would go on my own with my walker and go up fast and then sit. And then I had a stool. So I sat on the toilet and one leg's hiked up like this. And that's how I would do it because that was the only way I could think. And then it got better where the pain was a 5 when I stood up. And then it was like, a 1. regular. So then it was like, at that point, I'm rocking and rolling,
Yeah.
man. And then pain really came down at my first treatment. So 2.5 weeks ago, it was like, it got to where it didn't bother. Like right now, it's a super discomfort, a fullness in my leg. My leg feels tired, fullness, and about, at the height of pain is probably a 2 right now. So normal blood clot for me, normally. Yeah. It feels like somebody take a frog. You know how we used to do a frog with your finger, and you punch somebody in their thigh or their arm, and how you feel that?
Like a knot.
A big giant knot. You know how that initial pain feels? Like, that's how it feels.
At the height.
At the height, right now. So that's like super tolerable, man. Yeah. Like we can rock and roll with that.
So was that like the motive, your wife and daughter having to carry to get to the walker? Like
that was
kind of like the motivation, be like,
they would carry me to the bathroom, not even with a walker. And then when I would use the walker, they would stay with me with the walker. Everywhere I go do anything, they had to be with me.
Yeah.
And from day one, though, from going in, I was just really determined. I was up 3 hours standing up. In my head, I was like, I just looked at it every single day. I'm going to give it my very best today. And then the hospital be day 2. In the middle of the night, they drained my bladder, put a Foley in, drained all my bladder, and then I had to do it twice. And I was like, there's just all this, discomfort. And I was like, this is my plan for today. And then and all at home, I was like, this is my plan for today. But what threw everything off too was just like the blood clots, the fever for 13 days because of the blood clots. Almost 103. That's with medicine. That's with medicine to lower for 13 straight days.
Yeah.
You feel off, I'll sweat through the night and have sweat 4 different shirts. I never would sleep straight through the night. I'd sleep for like 2 hours, wake up for an hour, sleep 2 hours. My blood was bad, man. My platelet count was 1.3 million platelets. Your blood's clotting at 450. I was 1.3 million.
Wow.
I'm at 750 now, which is awesome. But my hemoglobins were so low. It wasn't low. I was in crisis where I needed blood transfusion, but it was low enough to where I was sleepy all the time. And I was like low where you're just tired, you're very anemic is what it is. Yeah. So and my blood is just bad, like super bad. And so you just feel bad about it. And so, but every day I was like, I would go, every day I would set my heart on the Lord. I would, like I've always done, just say, I'm very grateful, Lord. I look at what I do have versus what I don't have right now. Now, me saying all this is I'm not a superhero or anything. I've sat and have cried and talked to the Lord about how I'm feeling. And very raw with the Lord, how I'm feeling. I don't feel like Shane. I don't look like Shane. Nothing about me reminds myself. And then I would have to remind myself my identity is not what I look or even how I feel. My identity is in Christ Jesus. This is who I am. And then I remind myself that even this is for a duration of season of time. And then again, I have to remind myself every day was like that. It's not like, you just have, like, I was just looking at everything being like, the Lord must slay me. I must suffer well. I must become more like Christ. I must decrease. He must increase. And this is the way that the Lord would increase. And then if Jesus is good enough for save me, I believe that. He's good enough to keep me. And he's my peace. And when I rely on my own strength is when I jack everything up. I get stirred up in my spirit because of that. And then I have to just set my heart on the Lord. And it's like every day I would have to do that. Just have a moment where I just set my heart. And then, but things would compound in a day, Nick, is that things would happen. I wouldn't get the results what I would want the results. I wouldn't achieve any goals, things like that. And I remember my clot was bad to where it was like a 5 standing up, and I was just graduated to my walker alone, short distances. I told my wife, I said, hey, I'm about to go get some exercise outside. I have to. And I had to do more with my brain than anything with my body. So I asked my son Andrew to help me. And then right about then, the day before, a friend of mine at Oasis Church, Wesley Whitford, I knew from high school, he had heard about my story. And he wanted to get me a pair of shoes. So he ordered pair of on clouds. I never had nice shoes like that before. And so that was my blood clot shoes. And so I put those jokers on and said, all right. So we went outside. I could make one lap around my cul-de-sac. I was fried, but I did it. Yeah. And I did it literally just so in my mind, I knew I could do it. Because I knew I could do it. I sat in that chair thinking about, do I think I could do that? And I was like, I know I may fall. I hope I don't fall. But I'm going to try to do it. And then I went, man, my wife was nervous. She standing at that door watching me the whole time. But my son Andrew was on me, and we did all that. And then made a lap around. And the whole time I was thinking, I sat there and thought that I did this for me. But I really didn't do that for me as much as I thought I did. I did it for my son because he was watching Daddy. Yeah. And he's been seeing Daddy down. And he was so pumped, Nick, to see me do something that I wasn't sitting in a chair doing. Yeah. So, I, enduring it, for sure. But, yeah, in short, man, it's just been a crazy ride, man.
Well, I think it probably does any of our children good, but especially in this season of your life, you said you've always been Superman to your kids to show that humanity, because as they get older, they can relate that life isn't always, ease, and, there's going to be things you have to endure. Because, you even said there's times, even now, going to treatment, you have to sit in your car before going in to get your mind right. So it's, it's not over. There's still days. But I hope the guys caught what you said about your identity being in Christ. Even though you don't feel like yourself, you don't look like yourself, all of those things that could really get you down to where maybe you have to pause to get your mind right. That's your identity's in Christ. And, even where you're at is a blessing, to remember what you do have and where you are at. Because like I said, when you were talking about you would call Andrew, that was probably what I was expecting. Because you even said in the text, you were like, I won't be very clear. And it's like, the Lord's allowed you to speak well beyond what some, I know a gentleman who said when he started radiation within, I think it was like his second treatment, he was having to use an app to communicate that would, read off what he would type in for his family. So for you to be where you're at right now, and that's the other thing I wanted you to comment on, is the doctors have said for someone with the blood clots and things like that, you're far beyond what they've seen. If you want to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's exactly when you were saying that. That's my mind goes to it. I was sitting at the oncologist's office. I have my oncologist who did the surgery. I had the PA, and I have my care provider. The whole team was in a room with me. And they look everything I said, and then I'm just talking to them. My voice will sound much better than it does now. And it's kind of like my mouth, everything's kind of going downhill right now with treatment, and that's what to expect to. So it's not a surprise to me at all. So we prepare for the worst, hope for the best, prepare for the worst, and we really truly did that. So so it ended up, we're sitting in there, and my doctor, she said, my oncologist said, Mr. Padgett, you're doing so amazing. She said, I just can't get over the fact that you've overcome so much, more than most people even go through with your type of cancer. And you just didn't have all it. You had a multiple load of stuff going on. And we did the whole reconstructive in the mouth as well. And I'm just astonished at how this is just, and she leaned herself back, which she never does, and sat down. And the PA that's in the room too, she was just smiling ear to ear. And I'm just sitting there with three ladies who were just like, look at me like proud, but also kind of dumbfounded at the same time. It was like, you're just so far ahead of schedule about all this. It is really, she didn't say miracle, but she said something, some fancy word, but it was kind of like a miracle. And She said, and then she says, I just knew with your determination, and you were just in great shape, and you're just, from day one, you've always been very determined, and I think that's probably the key. And I said, for me, I look at it like this. I said, I feel like there's a big giant stadium, and there's people watching me, and they're just not watching me. They're like fans of me. They're rooting for me, encouraging me. I said, there's some of my friends. There's probably people I don't even know, really. People from church and my wife and my children. And I said, so and they're watching me. So spotlight's on me. So I got to be responsible for what's been given to me. I said, some days I feel like I run off a 15-yard run. I said, y'all probably don't even know what that is, but this football, I feel like I run a big run, and it's like I'm doing great. And I said, some days I don't hardly get anything. But one thing I was determined is that I'm going to fall forward. We said a lot with football. Don't go backwards, fall forward. So at least I fall forward, I at least gain a yard. So in everything I've done, I try to fall forward. I said, and that's kind of how it is. I said, I feel like my faith, I said, God's going to do his job. I said, God's people are going to do their job, which they have. I said, and now I'm responsible for my job. And my job is to get better, be determined. And she said, Miss Padgett, and she was like, wow. And she says, don't let, you just look so good shape. She says, don't let it discourage you too that you're not at the weight that you wanted to. And I said, yeah. I said, y'all don't know, but I used to be 240. And I just started telling her all the stats that I used to do. And she was like, wow. And she was like, I've never done that, etc. And she said, don't let it discourage you at all that you're not where you're doing. And she goes, and you're talking so well. She said, speech therapy is doing awesome. You're doing such a great job with speech therapy. I said, well, I haven't gone to speech therapy. I said, you're looking at the speech therapist. She goes, what? And then I said, yes. And then she says, Miss Padgett, you're just full of surprises. And she just could not believe, literally, they just couldn't believe anything. And I said, yeah, I went to speech therapy because I'm dyslexic, and then I had stuttering problems. I said, so I just did a lot of YouTube videos, and so I actually would sit there with everything in my mouth, couldn't move my tongue. I said, and I would speak like a ventriloquist. I go, hey, say, hey. I said, and I got to where when I could get that out, I would look myself on my phone and record me saying, hello, my name is Shane. And I would do A, B, C, D, work on every single day, multiple times a day. I would work on my alphabet because I had nothing else to do. No. To get better at speaking. And she said, they were just like, then the PA sat down. So I had a captive audience at that point. And then
that's the stadium you're talking about.
Yeah, so then they started doing my shoulders and my arms, and I have nerve damage in my mouth and obviously on my shoulder and stuff and my trap. And she said, you're strong. You're getting back your strength. She goes, I'm guessing you're your own physical therapist. I said, you're looking at them. So we do got somebody at church that became on staff that was a physical therapist, so he's going to teach me some tricks. I said, and she just sat there again, probably for another 5 minutes, dude, and she was just saying, you are so far ahead. She goes, I wish every patient was like you. If we did, they would defeat cancer more. Yeah. But so many times people just sit and they just go through it and don't do anything. And don't have that gusto. And I said, yes, ma'am. I said, you just really have to lock in. I said, every single day, you just have to I said, I'm pretty stubborn too. I said, but, anyways, that's how it was. And so, but and so that's kind of how it's been my thing, man. It's just, here's the truth, Nick. Here's the truth. The big thing I've been wrestling with for a week is I've heard so many people say, Shane, you look so good. You look so good. You look so good. You got a tan. You do all stuff. I sat outside for 15 minutes, my wife, baby, to sit in the sun because it helps your hemoglobins. Mm-hmm. And so I had to go sit outside in the sun because it helped me help your hemoglobins.
Get vitamin D, things you're not getting
I had
inside.
to. Yeah. 15 minutes, she would do it. So, it was non-negotiable. And then some days I didn't go there every day. I'll be honest. Sometimes I looked and I was like, that's too far of a walk. there's no way I can make it. There's literally no way. And obviously it rained a lot too. So, but every time it was okay, she said, you can get out the side. And I'm like, oh man. And I pout for a minute in my head. Nobody would see it. And then I'd go, all right, let's go do this thing. And then, but yeah, man. So people would say all the time, like, you look so good, et cetera. And, the last week I've been telling people more. I was like, and I told people yesterday, they were asking me, talking to me about it. And I said, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I said, you have no idea of the work. You have no idea. It's been the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. You've no idea how hard it's been on my brain when you can't even breathe. You can't do anything. Everything is just cut up everywhere. It's so easy just to go, I'm just going to take a bunch of mess and just sit and not do anything. When your kids have to carry everywhere, when things don't work like they're supposed to in your body, when you can't even put clothes on, it keeps falling off. You can't eat anything. You got to do a feeding tube. And there's a lot of people worse off. We got a friend, you and I both have somebody that is potentially passing away because of cancer. And so one thing I will say about suffering is that don't compare your suffering to other people, which I don't do. Yeah. I own my junk. It's my junk, ain't yours. And so, like, everybody affects everybody. This procedure for a lot of people affects them differently. And mine I'm extremely complex. And so, and when you go in, it will be extremely complex. My story is literally, I don't know anybody that's had the same exact thing, same procedure, same blood clot, same everything, the same inside mouth, which is less than 5% of the people that get this procedure. So, like, you're already shooting 95% of the people don't do what I did. And then you add everything back else. Who has the same blood disorder? Someone's like sickle cell anemia. So, like, who has the same exact? Not everybody else. But I don't compare myself to everybody else. I know what I feel. Yeah. And my story is different than your story. And so whatever your suffering is, it's going to come. It has to come. You have to be more like Christ. And it provides the opportunity for the gospel advancement. Yeah. And so, but in that, man, I'd have worked my tail off, like, unbelievably to get to it. And I tell football players for the last decade, and it's something they hear me say all the time, and then the next football game when I have to speak, it'd be the first thing I tell the guys, and I tell my children this all the time, is that you never can hide hard work. You never hide it. You ain't got to showcase it because you can't hide it. Hard work is always shown. I promise you. It shows. It will always show hard work. But I promise you what? Non-hard work, you don't work hard, it always shows. Yeah. And then that is a difference. And so, and some people, they're not at that place yet where they can lock in and all that. I'll be fair with you, Nick, and listeners. Like, only reason I feel like the only reason I'm where I'm at in my life today is because of all the suffering I've had to go through. I'm on my 10th life right now. I've had to go through a lot of trauma growing up. If I didn't have all that, I promise you, I wouldn't have what I have now. Yeah. There's no way in the world. It has always been a good gift. You've heard me say it before. Good gift. Yeah. It has been a good gift God has been. And in the midst of it, you don't really appreciate that gift. It's like getting socks or something. Like, I don't really care for, or underwear. But when you got no underwear and you got clean underwear, you appreciate that clean underwear. You know what I'm saying?
That's for sure.
And so that's kind of how it is, man. And so, but it's hard work. So that's a good one-liner too, man. You don't have to. Hard work can't be hid.
Well, and that's, I think, proven on the front end of what when the doctors were talking to you initially about your treatment, they said they were going to be able to do so much with you because you were young, still relatively young, and you were physically fit. So the hard work you put in before even knowing you had cancer put you in a position to be able to receive a gauntlet that they wanted to put you through because they don't want it to come back. And then in the midst, and I know you're actually about to go to treatment, So we're going to have to wrap this up, but you're doing what you can. And I know you haven't gotten into all that. We don't really have time, but you have been doing what you can, whether it be walking around, doing girl push-ups, starting with 2, now being able to do more. You're doing what you can to be able to recover quicker, to endure even more, so I think that's commendable. And I think that is one of the things that listeners can take away from not just hearing your story, but even in their own life. I love what you said about not comparing our suffering to other people, because there is a gentleman that it looks like from all, viewpoints within the next couple days, even, very short manner of time, could lose his life to cancer. Some people have gone to go have surgery for cancer, and the doctors are like, the tumor's gone, so every situation is different. And at the same time, we all face different suffering where it might be, I dealt with that. That wasn't that bad. And yet we don't know what people are going through, the mental anguish, what's being said behind their back. So I loved what you said with that. But I also love the fact that you view yourself, even though you're like, I don't look like Shane, don't feel like Shane. You shared that you kind of have been able to be the pastor of oncology. And those things that people are seeing, that progress, only goes back to declare the glory of God, because even in the providence of what you shared, even with the mouth procedure and rebuilding the mouth, like you wouldn't have known, those aren't things you necessarily would have thought of, but the procedure they're doing that is only done with like 5% of people, while it's rare, it was exactly what you needed. And you wouldn't have even known it at the time, but once the blood clot set in, it's like you would have had to have even more surgery. And so just seeing the providence of God just allows God to get more glory through your suffering. And that's the thing to me, seeing what you're enduring makes me think of Paul and the fact that he oftentimes pointed back his suffering to the people that he was ministering to. And that's why I'm grateful you've come in to share today, because it's not about Shane, but it's about allowing your suffering to be not only used for the glory of God, but for the good of the men or ladies who will listen to this episode to hear what you're dealing with.
That's been my heart. I never put a spotlight on myself. It's never been about Shane. So the worry is like, I don't want to talk about myself, and but I do believe that there's been a lot of moments where things haven't gone our way at all, and still we have all these amazing moments in this entire journey since the beginning where we go, I'm so glad this bad thing happened that it was unexpected. Because if this bad thing that happened, this actually worse thing was going to happen. There's been so many of those God moments, like you said, the providence of God. Like, there have been so many of those moments where you go like, this is, and so it's just been like, there's a pretty cool thing. Like, we just rest in the Lord, but a part of that again is like, I think getting down every day is really like giving each day as its own thing. Yeah. And like, this is my daily bread, so this is the day I have, what I'm gonna try to achieve today. And that should be in like your marriage will make we always say 1% better. Yep. 1% better. It's like, this is what I got. I got to get 1% better today. And so what does that look like? Well, here's some things I want to do today. And then have it. And when something bad dookie goes back, comparing your suffering, it's like comparing doo-doo. You step in dog poop, just a little dog poop, it still stinks. You step in a lot of dog poop, it stinks. Did you know it all smells the same? Yeah. If you got more on your shoe, you got to clean off than the other. But then it all smells the same. I tell my buddy Brad Powers that all the time. He had a bunch of miscarriages, and then he was like trying to act like it wasn't a big deal. I said, bro, when you step in dog poop, it stinks. It's okay to be like ticked and upset and all that, because I know I am when I'm taking dog poop. I got to give a stick, man, try to get it off. But it all smells the same, and so don't compare your suffering, and you can have that perspective. And you never want to spite on me, but hopefully I can encourage someone. And I'm so grateful that the first time I talk to do anything is on our show, and hopefully we can encourage someone that is going through something. Just keep pressing on and reach out to Nick Probably better for Nick than me, unless you have my text me. But if anything we could do for you, let us know. We'd love to encourage you.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we encourage you to share the podcast with other people, I'm going to encourage you to share this episode specifically because it very well could be an encouragement to someone in your own life, if not your life personally. So thank you so much for tuning in. Please continue to keep Shane and his family lifted up in prayer. He is still going through treatment. He's only about halfway through with the radiation. And so, every day is different. He's had a good day today to where he can speak with you all, but that may change tomorrow. And so after receiving treatment, it puts a strain on his body. And so keep him lifted up over the next several months until he's in remission. And then even then, I'm sure he'd covet your prayers well beyond that. Pray for his family. This is a taxing season on them, but they are a great family, and so they're walking with him. And so keep him and his family in prayer. And other than that, as we say, every episode, get 1% better, and we will see you or talk to you here soon in the future.
Yep. See you later.
Thank you for joining the Male Cartel podcast. Be sure to subscribe and share to help other men join the cartel. You can also keep up with us on social media and at malecartel.com.